Welcome to the Dare to Rest podcast. We have a juicy, fun episode in store for you today. In Dare to Rest, if you are new to my world, you probably don't know this, but if you are not, you remember that I always remind you to treat your body as a freaking temple because you have to get into that state of being well nurtured in your body. And we're operating in the Dare to Rest world with this concept of being grounded to grow, which really is about creating that stable platform from which you can create the elevated experience of life that so many people are yearning to feel. And how we create that stable platform for ourselves has to do with so many different things. We can talk about nutrition and sleep and oxygenation, metabolism, movement, and so much more. And as women, we are so fortunate that we have an extra complexity that we need to cater to in creating that safe, well-nurtured experience in our body, which is our cycle. And I have a lot to say about our cycles in general, and in my Grounded to Grow membership, we dive deep into this. I actually have another add-on to my Period Power Masterclass coming. But what I've also realized is, as a woman in her 40s, I've had to come to terms with the fact that I won't always have a cycle, at least not as I've known it so far. And I want to say, a lot of feelings about that in so many different ways, which can make me feel really emotional when I think about it. But maybe that's a story for another day. But what is really important here today is the realization that we have a life after our cycle and a transition into that phase of life. And this is really something I personally want to deepen my awareness on, hoping to set myself up for a beautiful period, which is what we call the perimenopause. I haven't had the best role models for this in my life, so I really, really want to do this better than what I've seen so far. And I am so fortunate in my life that I am surrounded by wonderful women who have knowledge about all the things that I want to know about. And that's why today I'm actually not here alone. I have invited the wonderful and talented, and I want to call you a perimenopause expert, Liz Surgeon, to join me on this podcast, really to break some myth around perimenopause and menopause. So Liz, come on here, darling, and say hi to everyone and tell them what your gifts are to the world.
Hello, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to dive into these myths that you have for us to discuss today. But yeah, my background, actually my background originally is corporate. So I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for just over 10 years before moving into nutrition. So I did a master's in nutrition, then I moved into functional medicine. And really, from my own journey with burnout and my own hormonal challenges, I then specialised in women's health. So for the last 12 years, actually, I might be coming up to 15 years now. 12 years rolls off the tongue, but actually those years keep going by. But yeah, for the last 12 or maybe 15 years, I've been running a actually virtual women's health clinic. So I'm based here in the UK, but my team and we work with women all over the world. And our ethos is all around bringing women back into connection with their bodies and their hormones. So we work with women from menstrual health, various hormonal conditions, through to perimenopause, and wider, because as women, all of our systems are very much interlinked. And one of the core pieces of functional medicine is all around understanding the root causes and the interlinks of these different systems. So quite often, a lot of our work is very much grounded in areas that people might not think of when they come to work with us, such as gut health. So that's absolutely essential to all of our hormonal health, as well as our nervous system. So it's a really rich, really rich career, business, love, passion of mine and my team. Because yeah, we get to work in such diverse ways and with lots of incredible women.
I love that. And that really is why I wanted you to come on here as well and share about this, because it's the beautiful link of what I do in Grounded to Grow, but you just do it from a different angle and very female focused, where my approach is more, you could say, classic body focus that works for men and for women, but also having that layer of women's health, because it's definitely something in and of itself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what we're gonna do here today is that I'm gonna ask Liz a personal question in just a second, and then we're gonna do like some rapid fire myth busting, because we both thought that was fun and laughed a little bit before we started this episode. We're like, oh, that sounds fun. We're gonna go with that, and then we're just gonna see where this conversation goes. I want to say already, I'm going to share all the information on how you can get a hold of Liz and access her wonderful universe, because we need this as women for sure. More knowledge and more awareness about how to lead ourselves beautifully through our menopause has the, I believe, and I know you believe that as well, the capacity to really elevate our experience of life as we go through that phase. So rather than it being something we fear or we try to neglect or ignore, like how can we find power in the very biological, natural thing we have to go through? That's what we want to go.
Yeah.
So I want to start off just by asking you, how did you feel about your cycle 25 years ago?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Gosh, I've never been asked that before.
Ooh!
Okay, 25 years ago. Right, okay, how old would I have been? So I'm now 46, so I'd have been 20, just turned 21. Oh my gosh, now I'm getting flashbacks of my 21st birthday party.
Yes!
Right, well, my cycle, oh, that's actually an interesting time for me, actually, then. Um, so the word that came to my head was switched off.
Hmm.
Because as I went through my teens, and actually this story is unfortunately quite a familiar story for a lot of young women. So as I went through my teens, as my periods became more regular, I experienced kind of a lot of clunkiness, should we say. And for me, I really suffered very badly with acne. So, having tried all the horrendous topical treatments and various horrendous antibiotics and all sorts of things they used to give you back then, and I think they might still do, eventually the doctor put me on the pill to treat, in inverted commas, treat the acne. So that did obviously, well, not obviously, but for most people it does. It cleared up the acne. So it ticked that box. But at that point, there was no conversation around what the longer term consequences of that are. And actually, essentially, I was never given really the understanding of what being on the pill actually meant. And I think to this present day, not many women or young women, especially, are provided that information. Essentially, when you go on the pill, you are just completely switching off your whole reproductive system. So my relationship with my cycle back then was switched off. It was completely biologically switched off. So essentially, that gave me the opportunity to avoid any understanding of my own natural rhythms. I lost the ability to sense what my body needed from me. Essentially, you could argue that acne. Now, when you're in your teens, everything will be a little bit clunky as the communication channels are finding their groove. But the acne is actually also telling me something. It's telling me there's probably a few other imbalances going on. And actually, in the present day, I can give myself acne by making lifestyle choices.
Ooh, that's
So,
interesting. Yeah.
yes, and I can give myself PMS by making various lifestyle choices. Now, obviously, when you're a teenager, it's some of those lifestyle choices might be things that you do want to make, and you have to weigh it up differently as to when you're 46. perhaps easier to make some of those things, and peer pressure, etc., isn't such a big deal. But yeah, for me it was absolutely switched off, and I think that switched offness, well, kind of ended up unraveling quite a few other challenges, which led me to where I am today. So it's part of my story. What was interesting when you say 25 years ago, and what popped into my head is because actually I remember, because I remember where I was living, I actually came off the pill when I was 21, to see if the acne had disappeared. I mean, it's just hilarious now, given what I know. And it hadn't, because nothing else had changed. So I went back on it. But yeah, when I was 20, so actually 21 years ago to now, I may well have been off the pill and realised that everything was still not how I wanted it to be because nothing else had changed in my life. But yes, that's where I was. Switched off, I'd say.
Perfect. I'm so glad that I could surprise you with that question. And I didn't know that part of your history, so it was a little bit of a bet. But I really asked that question to. This is my story as well, not yours, but I have a similar one of just being completely disconnected from my body, eating the pill like candy for ages, several years on an IUD, all the things, completely disconnected. But it really is to say, I'm not here to tell anyone what they do with their life. I'm just saying that there's another way of approaching that feminine power, which is also why I talk about the period power being on our cycle, um, and reclaiming that disconnection to really understand your body, because all the things we can eat and take, whether that being the pill, the IUD, it really just it numbs our body, just like you said. Had the issue gone away? No, because it had just been paused. So I love that that was your story because
Yeah.
no matter where you've been so far in life, and if you're starting to feel like, oh, there's something I want to explore here, I just want to emphasize it's not too late. You can always change your relationship to your body, to your cycle, to menopause and perimenopause as well. I hope.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it was quite a big relearning for me when I finally came off the pill, which was in my early 30s because we wanted to have children. Took my cycles didn't return. So actually we ended up having children using fertility support. We didn't go down the IVF route. We were able to go to the specialist at the hospital and go through that route. But my cycle didn't return, and my cycle didn't return until after I had my second child. So we went through fertility support twice. So it took a long time for my cycle return after coming off the pill. All coincided with kind of burnout as well. But that burnout came about because of that disconnection. Because I moved through my 20s at 100 miles an hour, achieving all the things, doing all the things, suppressing all the emotion, not listening, to all the tiny little things like the stress headaches, the various little niggles that were in my body, just not listening. I had complete disconnection. And I think that goes right back to that disconnection at that age. So really moving through my late 30s, early 40s was a huge reconnection moment. And I'm actually very grateful for that now because it has put me in such a strong position as I move into and through perimenopause.
We're going to come back to that. I was 36, I believe, before I had my first, and I want to say normal, like 28-day cycle. That was the first time in my life I experienced that. So, yeah. We could talk period stories forever.
Yes, we could.
But we want to move on to the myth. We want to move on to other myths. So, are you ready?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. So, the first myth we want to be busting, and I just want you to go like yes, no, or oh, I want to say more, and then we can pick it up afterwards.
All right.
So the first myth is we cannot influence our perimenopause or our menopause. There's nothing to do about it.
False.
False. Awesome. Good start. Okay, so next myth. Menopause has to include that we're gaining weight and that it's going to be hard to shed any weight that we're gaining.
Also not true, but there are things that change. So it's things to be aware of.
Okay, cool. Menopause makes you forgetful or mentally slow.
Um, no, not true. I'm. We can come back and discuss it. It's that's not a black and white one.
Okay, I love this. Okay, I just lost my notes. Give me 2 seconds. Menopause happens when we run out of eggs.
Um, ish.
Ish. I want to go here and say, based on what I've read, not true. We can still have eggs and
You
go into
still,
menopause, but we
yeah.
don't
I
have a
mean,
lot left.
yeah. I mean, you don't completely run out, but yeah,
Exactly.
that's why I was like,
Exactly.
wow.
But I was actually having this conversation with my husband before I started investigating this because I was completely blind to what the truth was. So he asked, so what? When does it happen when you run out of eggs? And I was like, I don't know, maybe. And we Googled it, and that's actually what Google said. Like, yes. And then I read a book, and I thought, okay, that wasn't true. That's
No,
why I brought
I've
it here because it's a fun one.
It is a fun one because I've never been asked that before. And as you said, had this like visualization of the kind of like these barren ovaries. I was well, no, that's not true. But they have significantly less. It's
Yeah,
like, and they're not coming anymore. Thankfully.
cool. Okay, so next myth: hot flashes and mood swings are inevitable.
No, that one's not true.
Hot flashes and mood swings are untreatable.
No, that's not true.
Yes, I like this. I like where this is going. Menopause is only about stopping the menopause is only about the period stopping.
No.
No. Oh. Um,
Oh, well, the word menopause. I mean, yeah, technically,
yeah, I know we're going on a limb here with
yeah,
menopause and
yeah,
perimenopause and
technically.
postmenopause. It's a biologic flaw.
Oh no, definitely not.
Oh no. Menopause means the end of my libido and pleasurable sex life.
No.
No. Menopause consists of just one singular phase.
So the menopause itself is one day, actually.
Aha.
Do you want me to do the little definition?
Yeah, go expand a little bit on that one.
So menopause is a day, and it is the day that is 12 months after your last menstrual cycle. That is menopause, so it's one day. Either side of that, you've got then postmenopause, and then before that, you have perimenopause. And then there were two, maybe three phases of perimenopause, depending on how you want to look at it. But yeah.
But I think this, and that's why I asked this myth, because I think that's actually really important to understand that that's also, I don't want to say a cycle, but we have to go through different phases and
Yeah,
treat them differently.
100%. Yeah.
Um, we talked about heat strokes already. Ooh, what about this one? I will forever and the rest of my life be sweating while I sleep.
No, that won't happen.
And then I want to put this one on. Maybe that's a little bit tricky. Is it only women who have a menopause phase?
So the men do have andropause, which is a change in their sort of testosterone levels. So there again, testosterone naturally declines over time. So for a lot of women, not women, a lot of men, as they move through their 40s, 50s, they will experience a more rapid drop in testosterone that will result in various symptoms, biological changes, lack of libido, lack of motivation, lack of energy, those. Some of that can also quicken up with additional lifestyle factors that quite often unfortunately coincide with that time. So more responsibility in the workplace, more responsibility in the family, maybe less sleep, all those different things. And that then knocks on lifestyle choices. Maybe they're working out less than they used to when they were in their 20s. So that again all speeds up, can speed up, should I say, some of that. So men do have a version.
Nice. I think we should talk about that as well. Maybe not here, but maybe let's talk about that in the world as a general. Okay, so I could come up, I think, with a lot of more myth, but based on what you know and what you've worked with for so many years, are there any myths that we haven't quickly covered here that you think we
Oh,
bust or confirm?
hmm. I think one might be HRT is the only route forward. I
Okay, and
think
we just need to translate for everyone who doesn't know what HRT is. It's hormonal
replacement therapy.
therapy. Yes. Okay.
Yes. So I think a lot of women, there's a lot of talk of HRT in social media, and I think quite a lot of the narrative is a little bit fear-mongering, as in if you don't go on it, you're increasing your risk of blah 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 blah. And actually, historically, it was if you do go on it, you increase your risk of blah blah blah.
Mm.
And I think it's a very confusing. There's a lot of people that want to do it naturally because it is a very natural process, but then there is a place for HRT. But it's about going on to it informed. So I think a lot of people, there's fear mongering that, oh gosh, I don't know if I want to do it, but should I do it? What does it mean if I
Yeah,
do? And all of that. So I think the most important thing is to know you have a choice and it's
that's a
about
good
what's
one.
right for you.
And just and again, I'm not that knowledgeable in this area yet, but I've also really, when I was reading a little bit about all of this, just the name hormonal replacement therapy, that name just doesn't really ring a bell. It feels wrong because we always have hormones. The question is like, how can we how can we support ourselves with the right hormones to support the body? So the name in itself has a little bit of like, it doesn't really feel right
Yeah.
for me. But
Yeah.
anyway,
No, I can see that. It's like kind of it's like you're because it's replacement. It's like, well,
yeah, with what?
yeah,
Like,
it's meant to
why not
be.
support? Like
Yeah.
hormonal support therapy would just feel better in my
Yeah.
body. So names have so much power over how we relate to the things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that was fun. I like myth busting. I just might do that on another topic another day. But Liz, can you just explain to us as, and I know this is a huge topic, but as simply as possible, what is the point of a menopause? Why do we have to go through this?
Oh, wow, this is that's a huge question, but it's also
I
a really beautiful question, I think, as well, because it's I think one of the things as women, we are so lucky that we do have we have cycles. We have this beautiful cadence that comes and we move through all of these different energy flows every single month. And when we're switched on and we're tuned, we can filter that, we can move with that, we can flow with that, we can take it easy in some of the ebbs, and that becomes incredible. And we can actually move through the world with this gorgeous cadence. But it's not every day is the same, which would become quite boring, right? We'd end up being like robots. But we have this gorgeous rhythm, and the same rhythm what we've been living with since we've gone through puberty kind of continues, but it moves in a different way. It's the rhythm of life, and we're now moving into when we go through menopause, we're stepping into a different phase. We're stepping into a wise phase, and sometimes it's often called kind of like the grandmother. What's it?
the,
Theory.
the sage energy, right?
Yeah, and not that in your late 40s, early 50s, you might be a grandmother, but actually it's this beautiful phase of, historically, evolutionary, we definitely would have been grandmothers by that age. In the modern world, but perhaps not. Although many are. I do have friends that are or will be by that point. But it's that point of passing on the wisdom and actually supporting being there to support the community, being there to actually support our daughters and our sons with their children, and to ensure, I mean, it's often, if you're going down an evolutionary perspective, it was often believed that it was an evolutionary advantage because actually, from an evolutionary perspective, we could evolve very quickly because we were able to have these life cycles and the young could have kids, lots of children, and the olders can look after the children while they have more children, and then there's this evolutionary cycle. But actually, as you know, in the modern world, I think it's just a beautiful cycle that we move through, and it's a huge growth phase. It might not feel like it at the time for some, but I should also say that I think there is a lot of fear mongering, and actually, the majority of people will have will have mild mild symptoms. We hear about a lot of the like the worst case scenarios, but actually the majority of people will have mild symptoms. And it's then this growth phase of actually coming back to ourselves, like what you're saying at the beginning, it's about that reconnecting. What does work for me? What am I not going to put up with anymore that I've been putting
Mm-hmm.
up with for 40, 50 years? How am I going to lead myself differently? And it's this huge, a lot of, at this phase, a lot of women may, if they've had children, they may have left home, they may have become, young adults. And it's this all times in with this gorgeous next phase. And I think I really see it as this growth wisdom phase for us to then either.
I love that. Seeing it as a, what can we call it, like a biological catalyst for growth into a new life phase.
Mm, mm,
That feels good.
a
It
hundred
feels so
percent.
much better than all the stories about hot flashes and night sweats and pains and all the different things. And I really appreciate you said most people don't experience that much. That soothed something in me.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of fear about all of this, and that's also why I wanted to educate myself in this, because I don't want to approach this from a place of fear, but
Mm,
more from a place of respect, and also understanding what's actually going to happen in my body.
yeah.
And I just want to add to the questions, so the question I asked you about what is the point of menopause, and take that back to saying, so what is the point of having a cycle? And if I answer that question myself, then you can add your perspective as well. Of course, you can say it's for reproduction, but I also believe that all those cycles that we go through is actually to accumulate wisdom
Mm.
into that menopause phase, or the perimenopause and the postmenopause phase. What's your idea around that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think since cycling regularly, naturally again, um, every cycle, I get excited. I get curious.
Mm.
I actually get curious on a daily basis. Like, what's my body telling me today? What can I learn from this? How can I lean into her? What does she need from me? And I find I go through that in every single cycle, and every single cycle I have moved from, I feel it's becoming smoother. So I
Yes.
guess it's quite, yeah, and it's actually quite interesting because as I feel like I'm moving further into perimenopause, my cycles are still very regular, but actually the symptoms I get are getting less. But that's because I've got curious, and I'm not saying it's, touch wood, going to continue like that because there will be big hormonal changes ahead, and
And
things will,
physical.
yeah, and things will feel different. But I think it's the going into that with the curiosity as around, okay, well, what do I need today? What looks different? What feels different? What can I do? How can I lead myself differently? And I think that connection is the growth that we go through. And then we have the training for with the cycles, and then that's what we go for as we move through perimenopause into postmenopause.
Yeah. And this is my personal opinion. I don't believe we can access the same level of wisdom if we spend our entire fertile years on a pill, on an IUD, and all of that. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying you don't have that deep connection to your body and learning to let it lead.
Yeah.
Okay. So share with us, what are the biggest disruptors to
Mm.
perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause? You can switch it up if you want, or split them up, or just say in general what are the biggest impacts.
Biggest, I think, one of the biggest, well, the two of the biggest ones that people can very easily shape and control sleep. You're like,
I preach sleep in my business.
sleep is huge. And it's not just about the hours of sleep that you get, it's the quality of the sleep that you have. So, with that, it's the self parenting in and around sleep. Um, and I mean, that somewhat links to stress too, and how you lead yourself prior to going to bed and how that affects the actual sleep quality you're going to have. But sleep is absolutely huge, and prioritizing that so much as you move into perimenopause will be a game changer. Um, the other one that's,
Can I ask a question to that?
yes, go ahead.
So does that mean more sleep for perimenopause and menopause? I always say women should get at least 8 hours of sleep, and during winter, both like the external winter and in the
Hmm.
winter of their own phase, aim for 9, just to give some
Mm.
grounding, yeah, well, general ideas. What would you say is the appropriate sleep for women when we talk perimenopause, menopause?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's quite individual, but I think if you're eight, yeah, eight is a really good.
Mm,
The pieces is just making sure it's good quality.
yeah.
So if you're either working on a laptop, looking on your phone, even watching the TV in the hour before going to bed, then that's going to impact your sleep quality. So you might have 8 hours sleep, but actually your heart rate's been raised for a large period of that time. You've not been able to get into the right sleep cycles because of the exposure to the blue light that's decreased melatonin due to the increase in cortisol. Also, what you're watching, the media you're consuming, like how does that make you feel? So if you're doom scrolling, quite often that is not a positive space to be in. So you may be a lot of comparison coming up for you. Again, then you go to bed on that. If you're watching the news, generally that's not good news. Or if you're watching a drama or a thriller, your body doesn't know the difference between what's on the screen and what's actually happening in real life. So again, you'll be going to bed, increased heart rate, your mind trying to process everything. You might drop to sleep, but the quality isn't going to be good. So I
Yeah.
think quality, even quality over quantity. Now, I'm not saying drop it down to 5 hours. That's not going to be anyone's friend. So if you're aiming for those 8 hours, that's great. And I love what you're saying around honoring the seasons, whether that's the season of your cycle, so your winter, or the actual season of the earth, winter, and
Mhm.
actually changing some of your routines in the darker months. Like
Oh
that's
yes.
evolutionary, that's what we would have done. So actually perhaps get up a little bit later. Don't get up to go and do whatever workout it might be or whatever it is that you kind of want to get up and do in the summer. Wait for the summer, optimize that, and just allow yourself to be and flow and see how that makes you feel.
Mm. So what I hear you say is a lot of the habits that we can start establishing in, let's just say, our mid 30s, we can start before, but a lot of people really have that like mid
Mm,
30s and 30s. That's actually the habit we get to implement and prepare our body for going through the perimenopause, menopause, and to support our postmenopause.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So you talked about sleep, you said stress.
Stress. Well, I think, well, the other one that I was going to say that people have the most control over is diet, nutrition.
Mm, mm,
I mean, we can all absolutely we make choices every day as to the food and the drink that we nourish ourselves with, um, and those choices have a profound effect on how we experience perimenopause and menopause, whether that's hot flushes, whether that's energy fluctuations, whether that's night sweats, low mood, all of those symptoms will be massively impacted by the dietary choices
mm.
you are making
That
on a daily basis.
that's interesting. So is it more related to like blood sugar spikes, or is it about getting enough fats, which generally always supports our hormonal balance? Like what are the key aspects in nutrition to take care of? And let's not go into whether you were vegan or vegetarian or paleo
Yeah.
or whatever, but just
That you know what, that level of difference won't make a difference.
exactly.
There might be some choices that will make it a little bit more trickier for yourself, but yeah. But one of the big areas is blood glucose balance.
Hmm.
So often the Western diet is quite high in processed carbohydrates, in sugars, um, perhaps a lot of us who are moving through our 40s now probably were also brought up in that the low fat era. And whilst we know that's not true anymore, there may be a bit of that overhang that you kind of feel like you're eating healthy, but actually it's perhaps not healthy.
Yeah.
So really understanding the blood sugar support and eating for stable blood sugar will make a huge difference, because when we have unstable blood glucose, it I call it a silent stressor. So it creates inflammatory responses in the body that over time will compound some like hormonal balance. So some of
Mm.
your sex hormone balance, and it's a silent stressor. So being conscious of that. And then there's a lot of foods that we can eat that are essential for hormone health. So that might be some of the cruciferous vegetables. They support in detox. Onions, garlic, those sulfur-containing vegetables, they support in different liver processes for clearing estrogen. That's going to be important when your estrogen surging. You want to be able to clear that out the system effectively. Different products, so a lot of animal-based products will be really rich in a lot of great B vitamins that again are really essential for mood, to supporting sleep, supporting hormone metabolism. So, yeah, a really varied diet will make a huge, huge difference.
Mm. And again, these are habits that we can already start doing now. We don't have to wait, because the better we prepare ourselves, the easier the transition will be.
Yes, and these habits will change your experience of your monthly cycle.
Mm.
So I think,
Yeah.
so if you are in your 30s, I think one big thing is that, PMS, so heavy periods, painful periods, low mood, low energy, headaches. I used to get horrendous hormonal headaches. They are common, but they're not biologically normal. So we do not need to be experiencing any of those. The easiest way to remove those is looking at what you're putting on your plates. And I know at the beginning I mentioned I know how to give myself those. The biggest thing I do to give myself those, and I did do an experiment 18 months ago, is eat a very, very typical Western diet. And within a
Yeah.
month, I was having PMS symptoms and acne.
I love that you said that. I have another podcast which is called "Ditch Your IUD and Set Your Body Free," where we also talk about PMS and how I believe PMS is a bullshit. Essentially, like
Mhm.
just as you say, we do not have to accept this,
No.
and I believe that the term has been um, a man probably invented this, like didn't understand the woman didn't understand herself, we have to call it something, she's hormonal, we're all hormonal all the time, so what's the story with that anyway? And I also believe that of course it has to do with the food and how we treat ourselves, and that's really part of the wisdom we have to learn each
Mhm.
cycle. And for me it's also, so what we often refer to as PMS, you can be the pain, but a lot of people also see it as this um the emotional expression of like
Yeah.
claws out, I want to rip the world
Irritability.
apart,
Yeah.
which for me really is like you have not learned how to truly incorporate the fall season of your
Mm,
of your cycle, where everything is amplified and life is just mirroring back to you. There's something for you to change, there's something for you to look at, and if we don't have that self-awareness and the ability and desire just to go within ourselves, that's where the claws come out, and we just push it
yeah.
back to the world when it's
Yeah.
really ours.
100%. Yeah.
PMS is not a thing. It doesn't have to be a thing, at
No.
least. And I think that's so, so, so important.
Mm.
So, talking about the nutrition piece, I guess, because one of the myths you said, when I said menopause equals weight gain and it's hard to lose weight,
Mm.
I suppose as you stabilize your blood sugar, you get enough fats, and you have a diet that also supports, you can see the whole cleansing of your liver. That's what you wanted to add to that myth.
Yeah. I think the thing I wanted to add there is that with the hormonal changes, metabolism does change.
Mm.
So what probably worked for you in your 20s isn't necessarily going to work. You won't be able to get away with things, perhaps, like you used to be able to. So as you've moved through your 30s and 40s, if you're able to start tuning into what does work for you, then that would make that transition significantly easier. But I did just want to acknowledge that there are hormonal changes that make it difficult, and as a result, we need to listen and get curious and figure out, okay, what do I need to do now to support that?
Mm.
Um, and there are a lot of things we can do beyond diet, actually changing the way we move. So perhaps moving from doing a lot of cardio type based exercise to doing strength based exercise and building muscle mass. I mean, we lose muscle mass if we're not proactively building it, especially that accelerates through the later stages of perimenopause and into postmenopause. But actually, by building muscle mass, again, that is going to help from a metabolic perspective. So there's a lots of moving parts, which is why sometimes it's not so easy just to say, oh, false, true. But it
I
doesn't
know.
have to be true.
And that's why we did a little bit of a deepening here as well. I'm also curious, of course, in your perimenopause, everything will fluctuate more. It'll be harder to predict when you're fertile. Then you say menopause is that one day
Mm.
of, yeah, nothing particular happens, but it's 12 months after you finalized your last
Yeah.
bleed. Is that the day where you are no longer fertile?
Well, you probably won't want to bank on that. From a family planning perspective, there are a lot of ladies in the world that have thought they were post menopause because they hadn't had a cycle and then suddenly fall
Ah,
pregnant.
okay.
So, yeah, I wouldn't bet
So how do we know when that we are no longer fertile?
on that. I mean, there are hormonal tests, so you can check FSH levels. That will tell you if you're post menopause. But again, okay, for I think majority of people, yes, probably after post menopause, you're probably not really going to be fertile, but I would still be careful.
That's so crazy.
Unless you want, another little person running around.
That is kind of crazy, but good to know. Maybe that should have been like a myth we busted as well, but we grabbed it here. Liz, time is running. I told you it's not supposed to be a long episode, but look at us. I think we've covered quite a lot already, but is there anything you feel could be of benefit that we
Mm.
haven't touched already?
Yeah, well, we briefly touched on it, and that's the different phases. And actually, I think because of, say, where you are and probably where a lot of your listeners are, we're actually talking about the perimenopause phases could be really helpful. So I said there was two or three. Now, the third one is pre-perimenopause. So that's really kind of when you're in your mid to late 30s. And actually, you might notice a few things changing with regards to your cycle. Maybe you are a little more susceptible to PMS, in which case there's an opportunity to lean into it and get curious and think, why? What do I need to change? What's she telling me? Then we've got early perimenopause. And the thing that happens in early perimenopause is that progesterone dips first. So I think a lot of people, when it comes um, to menopause, perimenopause, they think of estrogen, but actually it's progesterone that dips first, and progesterone is our feel-good hormone. Progesterone is in the second half of the cycle when we do just feel radiant. Now, for those of you who do have PMS, you might be, Liz, that's not me in my second half of my cycle. Again, that's an opportunity to get curious. Like, I
Yes.
love progesterone. The second half of my cycle is the best time for me. I am just really sort of focused, calm, collected. I can see my skin. I radiate more. That's just now she drops first, and with that you'll experience some more of those PMS type symptoms as estrogen becomes more dominant, and you may experience changes in mood because natural progesterone will cross the blood-brain barrier and into faced with something called GABA, which is a neurotransmitter, and it creates this really nice calming effect. It'll also support sleep too, so sometimes sleep can alter. Then, as you go into the second phase, that's when you'll get those estrogen surges. So you're then on this backdrop of progesterone being low, but actually estrogen surging. So estrogen's not dropping first, it's surging. So you get estrogen surges. Again, that might create some of these symptoms. And then finally, estrogen drops. And that's usually then when you'll go potentially through this 12-month phase to menopause, and then post-menopause when both hormones are at their lowest. So I think it's important to know just about those few phases in perimenopause, because there are different symptoms based on where you are on that. So then being able to be aware of that and then start thinking, okay, now let's tune into what am I experiencing? This is where I might be. Okay, as a result of that, I can do this, this, and this to better support myself.
Yeah, so just to make this tangible, I always like that using progesterone, which really is our, as you say, feel good, relax hormone. When that drops, I'm supposing sleep will be more difficult, more restlessness in general. So really focusing on sleep hygiene, and remember just to dare to rest, I want to say. Even though that your body is no longer like naturally inviting you into it.
Yeah, it's yeah, absolutely. So it's really leaning on some of those other tools that you've started to learn that work for you during that time.
Yeah. Awesome. This was so good. I have one final question, and this is going to be a personal question again. Are you excited for your menopause and post-menopause?
Ooh, I am, because I'm so curious. I'm curious to know, what it's going to be like, what I'm going to learn, what I'm going to step into, and then what will be unfolding on the other side of that, with the wisdom and the woman that I'm going to emerge as. It's a little like being a butterfly. I do see myself as a butterfly now, but I'm trying to be. It's like a new little cocoon that you'll go into, and then you'll come out as a slightly different butterfly for the growth that you go through. So who knows what she's going to be like.
I love that. And that has not even the slightest sense of fear in it. And I really appreciate that you are spreading this message in the world. Like, let's embrace this very, very normal. I think we call it like a biological catalyst for growth into our next life phase. That really is beautiful. So thank you so much for being here, Liz, and sharing this. I'm going to go so much deeper into all of this, but I really appreciated having you here. And just thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been really fun.
It was. And thank you for everyone tuning in. I hope that you learned a little bit more about your, what I want to say, cycle as well, because that's where we started. Perimenopause, menopause, and not so much post-menopause, but maybe we'll do that in 10 years. Let's see. But thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you so much, Liz, for being here. It was my pleasure.
No problem. Thank you.